Hi, I'm Cody Alexander with MatchQuarters.com. Welcome to another episode of the ArtofX show. Today we'll be talking about our June Blitz of the month. It's a gap sim pressure that I got from West Virginia, something that I've paired with what I call Allen. Maybe you've heard of Aranda's Mex Path, and we'll get into that later. But also the episode's going to kind of talk about what is pressure, what is a blitz, how pairing these sims and creepers together to create a layered effect in your defense. That's really what a modern defense has to do. You're not just calling calls and then, hey, look at this really cool blitz I've got, but I have no idea how to use it and then what to pair it with. So first off, let's talk about a blitz. Blitz is an off-ball defender is going to insert into the box, right? He's going to rush. He's going to rush the passer. He's going to blitz a gap, but it's an off-ball defender, somebody that's not standing on the line of scrimmage. A blitz, the other term, is sending more than 5 defenders. So if I'm sending 6, 7 guys, then that's designated a blitz. I'm blitzing the offense. I'm gapping them out. I'm sending multiple guys to one side. You can do whatever you want. There's a million different things that you can do. What is a pressure? A pressure is sending 5 defenders or the illusion of a rush, right? So that's what a pressure is. A pressure is changing your static look or your traditional look, what you're running, and then sending an extra guy or creating the illusion of pressure, which is a replacement pressure or a simulated pressure. So let's talk about what a replacement pressure is. It's a creeper, right? That's the other name for it. It's a creeper. I'm sending an off-ball defender and I'm dropping an on-ball defender opposite. It's kind of a seesaw effect, right? Most 3-4 defenses have been doing this for a long time. If you go and look at any kind of fire zones were based off of this system. All a creeper does is it says, instead of sending 5, let's go ahead and let's send 4. And so you'll hear them as replacement pressures. You'll hear them as creepers. Some people even call them simulated pressures because you're simulating a pressure, but you're dropping 7 people into coverage. So it really just depends. I'm just kind of giving you where I stand on it, what my definition of it is. So when I'm looking at film or when I'm breaking something down, this is how I look at it. So replacement pressure, bringing someone from one side, dropping somebody from the other side. Off ball on one side, dropping an on ball defender opposite. So simulated pressure, it's the illusion of pressure from alignment, meaning that I'm going to give this a 5, 6, 7 man presentation, but I'm only going to blitz 4. That is a simulated pressure because I'm literally simulating the pressure. I've got everybody on the line of scrimmage, and then I'm just going to drop out, and I'm only going to have 4 guys rush the passer. I'm still going to get my 7-man distribution in the back end, or perceived blitz from an off-ball defender. So what that means is, and this is where we're headed today. So we're talking about a simulated pressure, right? Attacking the A gap. Okay. I have an off ball defender attacking the A gap at the snap of the ball, but I'm going to drop an on ball defender. So I'm simulating multiple people rushing the passer, but I'm going to drop that off. So that's where you get the simulated pressure. You can either give it through presentation or attacking an internal gap, mainly the A gaps. That's where I determine a simulated pressure versus a replacement pressure. I think it's important to kind of have, when you're looking at these things, have an idea of where the two sit. Some people are just saying, you know what, they're all simulated pressure. Let's just call them simulated pressures, which is fine too. It just depends on who you're talking to and how they designate it. Do they have it as a sim? Do they have it as a creeper? Or is everything a sim? So it's kind of that whole umbrella. So let's talk about blitz rate, because blitz rate's important when you're looking at defenses. It's the number of snaps that defense sends 5 or more, or sends an off-ball defender, right? So that would be anytime you're adding somebody that's not on the line of scrimmage in, or the number of snaps that you've actually done this, right? So that's your blitz rate. Okay. Total plays. How many times have you added a 5th rush or you've sent an off ball? Because that's right. We have these simulated pressures and these creepers. So if even that illusion of pressure is in that blitz rate, because what you're doing is you're not playing from a traditional alignment. You're sending somebody towards the line of scrimmage. Most common pressure is an off-ball backer. That's the easiest one, right? They're in the box. Let's attack an interior gap. You could say safety is probably up there. Nickel's probably the number 2. then kind of that safety, and then you obviously have your boundary corner. Those are kind of the one that you just don't ever see unless it's a reduced set and everybody's really close together, is your field corner or your pass strength corner. You're just not going to see that. Most people aren't going to blitz that guy all the way from the sideline to the opposite hash. It just doesn't happen. It's just too far to go. And I think that's something to think about in blitz is like, yeah, on paper, this looks really good. And I see this sometimes in the NFL because the game is played in the middle of the field. But what some of these offenses will do, they'll actually spread the formation out. And yet you still have your nickel or your star is still going to rush. And it's so far by that time, and the quarterbacks are so good in the NFL, like the ball's already out. So you've wasted a guy because you blitz the guy that, all the way from the numbers to try and attack somebody in the middle of the field. So always look at blitz rate and the numbers of rushers. That's what I look at when I'm looking at analytics of different defenses. Obviously I'm going to look at EPA. I'm going to look at, efficiency stats, but I also look at blitz rate because I'm always intrigued by guys and teams that just blitz a ton, right? There's always to me, there's a story there. It's not that, hey, we just blitz. That's what we do. The old Don Brown, solve your problems with aggression. Yeah, that sounds great. And when you put that on the wall, and it's a cool sign to have. But even with Coach Brown, he would tell you that there's a purpose, there's a rhyme and a reason for why we're pressuring, even if we are doing it at a high tick. Or to me, I want to know why. Right? Why are they blitzing? So the blitz of the month this week is from West Virginia, 77% blitz rate, but only around 21% of those did they send 5 or 5+. So of all of that, they're only 1/5 of the time they're only sending 5 or more. So their blitz is actually not that high. High percentage of Sims and Creepers. So to me, looking at modern football, looking at where we're going, Sims and Creepers it's kind of exploded within the last 4 or 5 years of people talking about it. You go and rewind the clock 6, 7 years ago, nobody's talking about Sims and Creepers. Starting in around 2018, people start talking about Sims and Creepers. It just gains as passing, and it makes sense. Passing is much more efficient now than it ever has been in any level of football. So coverage now is kind of on everybody's front porch, right? What are we doing? This is what we're doing in the coverage, and that's going to now set everything up in the run fit in the front, right? That's what we're doing. We're working back to front. I think most people are if I get it at the lower levels. Everybody talks about you have to stop the run. You have to stop the run. High school is still a run game. I understand that. And I do 100% agree with that. You have to be able to stop the run at the high school level in order to win games. Okay. Because not everybody has an elite quarterback. It's not like that. The talent is too spread out at the high school level. But when you start getting into college and of course in the pros, everybody's good, right? Everybody has a quarterback that can throw the ball. Okay, so for the most part, you have to now change the way that you think about it, because offenses at those levels have changed the math by alignment, by formations, by motion. They can now manipulate what you're doing on defense. And so as a defensive person, you have to start thinking about, okay, how can I protect myself in the pass, but I can still applying that pressure. Okay, I call it passive pressure, right? Like we're sending pressure, but we're not sending 5, 6, 7 guys at you. It's not just like, hey, we're throwing haymakers all the time. So it's kind of like, to use that term passive pressure, that's what it is. It's simulated pressure. It's a replacement pressure that we're really only bringing one guy and we're dropping another. So we're not losing anything in the coverage integrity. And to me, that's where we are. So anytime I see a team like West Virginia, they're 77% blitz rate. There's an article that's going to come out here in the next couple months on Troy. Troy had it like an 85% blitz rate. It was like insane. But you go and you break it down, and what is it really? It's really just mostly Sims and Creepers. So yeah, they have a high blitz rate, but they're only doing it with 4 rushers all the time. So they're holding that coverage integrity. So to me, that's always important. And that's where we are with the evolution of modern defense. When I started doing this, And I really got into football in 2011 when I was with Baylor, and I started working under Phil Bennett, who's now at North Texas. You know, the 4.25 was king. What Gary Patterson was doing at TCU, what we were doing at Baylor. You go look around the landscape. Everybody's kind of running it. Pat Narduzzi, even though it is a 4.3 base, but go look at how that they've done it with it. It's everything started being this nickel hybrid linebacker, right? Your will linebacker also had to be able to cover. Your Mike now had to be able to cover. I remember going when I was doing the recruiting, especially at the JUCO level, because that was my responsibility when I was at Baylor. I did JUCO recruiting, and we were always constantly looking for a linebacker. And I would see these linebackers, but at the JUCO level, they were these big athletic kids, but they were really edges. Right? They were just stuck in a box because everybody's like, we have this really big kid. He's kind of fast. We're just going to put him in the box. And all he's got to do is plug the A gap. So for us in the Big 12, it was like, man, that guy can't cover the number 3 receiver down the field. Like, he's got to be at least able to carry him vertically, and he's got to be able to run a little bit. And then all these guys I would see is that they would sign with these 3-4 teams, and the first thing that they would do, get moved to edge. So to us, the way that we looked at it was we had to have athletic linebackers at every spot. And so the 4.25 was kind of the dominant thing, right? Well, then everybody sees, okay, well, everybody's kind of going to this uber spread. Art Brow system's kind of hitting it. We have Chip Kelly at Oregon. He's killing it. Everybody's killing the B gap, right? The B gap's open, and that's the problem with the even front, right? Is the B gap. Well, what's the spread's lifeline, right? What's the modern offense's lifeline? It's that B gap, because that's where the conflict defender is. Okay, so how do we eliminate that? Well, then you have the explosion of the tight in the mid front, like Dave Aranda at Wisconsin. You have Alabama with the tight in the mid front, and then obviously that goes to Georgia with Kirby Smart. And so now everybody's running the tight mid front, and then the kind of an iteration off of that is the Iowa State 3 high system, right? And really, even then, that's not really tight front based. Everybody thought it was just like a tight front with three linebackers and 3 safeties, and it really wasn't. It was really a 5-0-5, but what they were doing is they call it a fist or splatter or heavy technique, and they're basically just pinching the hell out of everything. It's ending up in a tight front fit, but it's just coming out from a 5-0-5 or a 5-0-4, depending on what they were running. But the only time they really ever ran tight was in empty. Right. So that they could get everybody to kind of cover down. So you have this evolution from the 4-2-5. Now everybody wants to run the tight mid front. Now we've gotten so far to where passing is so great. Everybody says, man, you know what? The tight front's great to stop the run, and we need to stop the run. But the issue is I'm constantly having to send 5. And if I'm constantly sending 5, I can run fire zones, right? Half field zone, which means I'm playing man to one side, but then I've got to figure out, okay, do I carry over to the man side? Am I on the zone side? How do we carry crossers? All these other things, because what is the modern offense built on? It's built on crossers, right? Deep crossers, shallow crossers, mesh, Y over, all Mills concept. So now I'm in trouble because I don't know. I've got to now be able to teach. Am I on the man side? Am I on the zone side? How are we doing that? Are we man match? Are we zone match? Are we doing that? Who's carrying that guy over? Then with the fire zones, who's carrying the seams? I've got a linebacker, that now I've got to carry the seam. Maybe it's a DN that now has to carry seam. How do we figure this out? Then you go even from there to cover 1. Do we have the dudes? Do I have the dudes to play cover 1? Now we saw this kind of a couple of years ago where everybody just started running cover 1 against RPO teams, right? They're just like, look, F it. We're going to run cover 1. That's what we're just going to run cover 1. Everybody's covered down, but then you have issues because, again, running quarterbacks, right? So your quarterback defender is now in the middle of the field. And so how are you going to play that? You're still in conflict, right? And so what people have and what you're seeing now is people going to more of a 4 down, that peso look, right? Yeah, we're a 3-4 base. But when we want to get a pass rush, we're going to have these 4 defenders. I think Georgia was a great example last year of just having a plethora of D linemen and a 4-man rush. Why are you always running a 4-man rush? Well, we run a 4-man rush because I have two edges that can just fly to the quarterback, right? And I have two ball fitting backers that can just work in tandem and do that. And then inside, we're trying to play gap and half. Right. So I'm still getting these odd spacing fits, but I'm running them all from an even front. So now I've actually kind of unlocked the defense even more because I can run even spacing when I want to, and then I can run odd spacing when I want to, all from having a 4-down front. So the part of the Peso creeper with the creepers and the Sims off of that, right? So let's talk about Peso. Peso is just taking your two edge defenders and lining them up at DN. You take your nose out or you take your tackle out and you move, or even DN, doesn't matter. And then you move a guy to one of your DNs to a 3 technique, and then you have your nose who's now playing a G, right? Or head up, depending on how you're playing this. And then you're using movement and pressure to now cause havoc up front or play on what the offense is doing. So movement, we know, creates tackles for loss, and you have the added value of pressure when you start then adding these creepers and Sims. Georgia and Baylor are at the forefront of this evolution, and it's not shocking, right? If you think about young head coaches that are doing really nice things on defense, it's Kirby Smart, who comes from the Saban system, and Dave Aranda, who's been doing this tight front Peso creeper and Sim thing forever. He's kind of like the godfather of it, right? And now he's working with his mentor in Ron Roberts, who essentially is him and Ron Roberts created this defense and now has it kind of unleashed it onto college football. Now everybody's kind of doing it. Everybody's like, hey, what's Dave Aranda doing? I need that playbook. I need to be looking at it. What are they doing down there? And then on the other half of it is the coverage system from Kirby Smart. But what are they doing on that? What are they doing up front? And then just that massive playbook that they have, and being able to constantly be able to change and bounce ideas off of some of the best coaches in the country. So Baylor and Georgia pressured around a third of their snaps. So it wasn't like they were doing it all the time. And here's the thing. If I have really good players, I don't need to pressure all the time. Right? Because even when I'm running creepers and Sims, I'm still applying pressure. I'm moving the defense. Okay, there's going to be a slight second where we're going to be a little off kilter until everybody gets to where they're supposed to be. But if I have really talented players that can control the front, I don't have to necessarily move all the time. Georgia, for instance, didn't run a ton of Sims and creepers. They were more of a 5-man pressure team. And the reason why they did that, they could get one-on-ones, and they had these 2 stud inside linebackers that could also rush the passer. So you end up getting, hey, look, if I send 5, it's kind of like what the Rams and Brandon Staley were doing, right? If I send 5, okay, it's one-on-ones. I have better players than your offensive line. We're going to win a one-on-one. And they did, and they went all the way to a national championship. And then obviously the Rams won the Super Bowl this year. So to me, there's a little tail and tape. If I don't have the best players, I need to create pressure. I need to create tackles for loss. And I do that by movement and creepers and Sims, right? I'm doing that from these looks. And because I have odd personnel on there, I can bounce from the tight front to an over front, to an under front. I can change the way that I lever my anchor points up front to fit what I need, one, in the coverage wise, but also two, to change up the looks, that I'm not always in the same static look, which I argue same static look every time, change post snap. That's something that I think you're going to see more and more of, is just people lining up. It's kind of like back in the 2010s when everybody was running 4-2-5, except for now you've got a bunch of added value to it, because now we're moving people. Now we've got these creepers and Sims. We're adding different cover structures. We're not just playing 2 high quarters to everything. We're not just playing cover 3 to everything. We can change not only the coverage structure and the look, but also what you're seeing up front. Here are 2 great quotes, that one from Kirby Smart during the season, and 2 Dave Aranda via his interview with 247 Sports from a couple weeks ago. Kirby Smart said, "We have changed a bit philosophy. Whether we've got a great front 7 or an average front 7, we'd probably be doing what we're doing. It's not a matter of offenses changing us. It's more of a matter of what we have to do in order to defend these types of offenses," right? So you can see this evolution within his system, even within the past couple years of moving away from a kind of a bear dominant, a tight front, a mid front dominant defense to more of a 4-down defense. And why? They have these defensive players, but also it allows them to kind of give you the illusion of even spacing. Look, ask any offensive coordinator to draw up their favorite run play, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to draw it up against a 4-down front because the angles are really nice, right? Well, if I can give you the presentation of a 4-down front, but then we're also fitting in odd spacing, it changes everything, right? It changes the way that you have to look at things. And now your offensive line has to be really good at divvying things out post snap. Okay, let's talk with Aranda. It's going to look like a blitz, though you're only bringing 4 guys. When I was at Wisconsin, our offensive coordinator there was a guy named Andy Ludwig, who's now at Utah. And we'd go through practice periods and scrimmages. And I think one of the advantages of creepers is if you do it right, the back stays in the protection and can't get out if you identify stuff right. And Andy goes, Dave, you're not really spending a lot, but you're getting a lot. This is a lot like a niceness, meaning that we're ignorant. We have no idea what's happening. It's confusing to us. So that's the thought behind it. And a fair amount of teams do it pretty well, and Georgia's one of them. So they've kind of these are 2 teams that, one, look at each other all the time, but also 2 kind of are mirrors of each other in the sense of what they're trying to do. They come from different philosophical trees. Dave Aranda has his own style of play that is really just his. And then you have the smart system that stems from the Saban system, but has kind of molded over time to kind of look more similar to Dave Aranda. So really, I put these 2 quotes here because I want you to see that there is an evolution happening, especially at the highest level. And we're going to start seeing this at the NFL level as well, of being able to really take it to the offense and not necessarily being just sitting back and taking it, right? That we have to change the way we're doing it because of the way the offenses are playing now. We like creepers and sims because it changes the math for the defense. If I can get the running back in, I now have 7 defenders to now cover 4 receivers. We want that, right? That's a +3 for the defense. Whereas if I do anything else, it may just be a +1. Right? We always want +1s, but what's a higher number, 1 or 3? I mean, even my little kids can figure that out. We want 3, we don't want 1. So to me, I just want to give you kind of a feel on this evolution. So let's talk about a sim versus 5-man rush. Sims and creepers is a pinpoint attack. I'm attacking a specific area of the box because I know either, one, this is kind of the play that's coming. Are they zone? Are they gap? Right. And then I'm also attempting to get the running back to stay in. So 5-man pressures create 1-on-1s. Remember, I mentioned Georgia's D-line this year and then the Rams, right? Under Raheem Morris this year, that was started by Brandon Staley. Let's get to a 5-man front. It's 1-on-1s. Our guys are better than yours. Both are useful and mirror each other in a way, right? Just one is dropping an extra defender, on-ball defender back. And then the other is, hey, we're bringing 5 guys. Now, if you have the cover structure to take hold, hey, look, we can handle the 4 receivers, or, hey, we know that we can get to the quarterback and make them panic because we have better guys than them, then that's when you start that added pressure. Okay. Sims equals base coverage. Whereas if I send 5, now I've got to start changing the coverage, right? Half field zone, cover 1, fire zone. What are we seeing? And then what's the coverage structure that we can get to? Half field zone stuff, that's like the Saban Big 12 pressures. Cover 1, obviously, most people know that's cat coverage, right? And there's different ways that you can run this. You can run a sim with 1 rat, right? Because you have that rat in the middle, and then you also have the extra guy. And then fire zones, obviously, with your 5-man pressures, that's kind of that 3 under, 3 deep. You can also do trap 2 underneath that. And it's really, what are you seeing? What do you need in order to combat that? So simulated pressures on non-third down. Everybody knows the sexy, like the Saban NFL pressures, where you line up in these real exotic fronts, 5-0 fronts, and you cover all the linemen, and then we're going to send one side, we're going to drop the other, we're manipulating the pass protection. Those are great. Those are sexy. That's third down. How do I now use what I'm using on third down on first down, right? How can I get these simulated pressures and use them on early downs? I want to attack the interior of the box with off-ball players, right? Let's talk about the spread offense, right? Y off. Okay. We've got a tight end in the box. We've got a running back in the box. Okay, that means I'm going to have 2 off-ball backers sitting in the middle, right? Okay, so how am I going to use them to now attack the run fit, right? Utility pressures, and you want to have them to be great versus play action pass too, right? Because I'm getting that added value of pressure. So if they do go play action pass, I want that pressure to hit, right? Okay, so these are utility pressures, meaning that they can be used on any down. You can be, if they pass on first down, because we're seeing that's starting to become more of a thing. Hey, our offensive coaches need to start passing on first down. Okay, then if I get a stop on first down and it's 2nd and long, can that same pressure still work then? Okay, because that's what you want. You want these pressures on these early downs to be able to be utility that, hey, they're good versus the run, but they're also good versus a pass. Okay, Georgia has evolved, and I've written about this before, and I've talked about this before. Georgia has evolved to a cross dog defense. I'm going to insert a defender, and then my ball fitting backer will then just loop around them as a fit, and it creates these natural cross dogs. Okay, you can run cross dogs. Okay, you can attack the guard, you can attack the center, you can run these cross dogs, but you get that natural cross dog from these Sims and pressures, these creepers, if you do it right and if you teach it right. The concept too, and mostly talking about simulated pressures, because that's what we're talking about today with the Blitz of the Month, is the idea of floating the center. Okay, I want the center to sit there, and either I need to go engage one of the anchor points, right, to help my guard, opening up a gap, right, which now forces the running back to stay in if it's pass, or I want him to sit there and just kind of float, because if he floats, then I can manipulate that, right? And that's where the cross dog comes in. Okay, these A-gap sims are really good versus zone-centric offenses, but they're also good against gap scheme. If you hit it right, you can actually beat the puller, or you can kind of box that puller and kind of mess up, just blow it up. I call it punch the puller, right? You can either punch the puller or get a run through on zone, just depending on how that works. But again, going off of that cross dog action that Georgia loves is crossing the face of the center, or creating it to where the center has to take somebody, lining up a nose in front of him and engaging him, and then sending a linebacker on the other side. How are we attacking these A gaps and these sim pressures? So that's what we're talking about today. So examples of this, I call it, Alan, it's Aranda. Aranda calls it Mex, and it's a cross. I call it a cross. The reason why I call it cross, I think it's easier to just teach it as a cross face for the center. You know, if the center even looks at me at all, I want to cross face. If he floats, because at the high school level, you'll get centers that just kind of like they freeze and they don't know what they're doing. And then your Mike linebacker it hits the wrong A gap, and remember, we're creating a natural cross dog, and so he doesn't pin. Now I got 2 guys in gap, and now there's an extra gap. So what I developed does, instead of giving the VTech, like if you have a really good technical linebacker, give him the VTech, right? Have him read the center. Okay, and you got to work that. That's something that you got to rep. On the other hand, if you don't have real technical linebackers, you just call it a cross. Hey, we're crossing the face of the center. If you can't cross the face of the center, that means he's blocked. He chased our nose, and you're just going to cut off his backside and just cut off that A gap, right? Because we have another guy folding in. That's where we get the natural cross dog. That's why I put Manning on the bottom. Manning is your cross dog sim. Okay, we're getting our cross dog, our traditional old school hot pressure cross dog, except for we're just dropping our DNs. Now, I like to drop the D into the 3 technique because I think it's just easier. You get that natural tech stunt. You can do it, and people do drop the D end away from the 3 technique. It's just what you feel more comfortable with. I like the 3 technique. Some people like the D into the nose. It's all up to you. But these are 2 examples of really good peso sims that you see. So let's talk about West Virginia. Let's transition to West Virginia. Let's talk about them real quick. They're a mid-tier defense. Okay, 66 EPA, 32nd defense efficiency. Great study for Sims and Creepers because they do different fronts. Okay, they're in an under front, they're in the tight front, they're in an over front. They do it from all different ways. 4-man rush with off-ball blitzers, right? Matched philosophically with what top defenses are doing, which is why I chose West Virginia. Why did I choose West Virginia versus Minnesota? Great study on early down sims. Minnesota is what I would call an uber RPO play action pass team. Everything has a read on it, or we're building everything off play action pass, right? And they do a ton of 12 personnel and Y off base. I'm starting to see, and you're going to start seeing this in the Big 12. You're going to start seeing this, obviously, in the Big 10 is seeing it. The collection of tight ends. We're seeing this also in the NFL, and I think we're going to start seeing this in really in major college football. Is the movement, since everybody's getting lighter, we've got to get heavier, but we can't sacrifice the offense that we've already evolved to, right? We already know that there are certain things offenses need to do in order to be successful. If I just go wholesale 21 personnel Neanderthal ball, we're sacrificing that, right? That's too easy. People have figured that out. We've already gone through that iteration. Okay, so now we're taking spread concepts, putting them and packaging them with 12 personnel, what I call like a receiving tight end, and then you have a blocking tight end, right? And being able to use that, and then also building RPOs and play action off of that. West Virginia did a great job of illustrating a complement to Allen in what I call max. So we're crossing the center. Now, all of a sudden, I'm going to start manipulating that center, and I'm basically going to send what I call a dog pressure, meaning that it's just a backer in a gap, and he's just going to run through that gap. But we're going to add the value of, instead of it being the 5-man pressure, we're going to run it as a simulated pressure. High volumes of sends means you need change up. You can't just run the same thing over and over and over again. Complementary pressures, layered defense, change the way that you do your coverage, and also have these complementary pressures. MAC, which you can see here if you're watching, is the complementary pressure to Allen. So I'll set it up for you. What is the difference between Allen and what is the difference between MAC? On the surface, it's the exact same, except for what I'm doing is I'm sending the nose straight through the guard. We're not going to run a knob, meaning the nose is not going to try and go to the B. We don't want to float the center. We want to engage both guards. We want the center to work to the nose. And so what I like to do is I like to put them in a shade. Really put them in a shade. Instead of a 2-eye, put them in a shade and really put them on that center. That center has to engage me because I'm sending a dog right behind him, which is a quick strike blitz. There is no read for that backer. He knows the gap that he's going into, and he's going to work there. You have that tech stunt away, which allows you to have that read pop, and then you have the Will, who's he's moving to the B gap, which is kind of your cross dog action that you already have on the inside. That nose again is going to work. Step out through the guard, trying to bring that center with him and work vertical through the A gap, not crossing the face of the guard. That allows that Will to kind of have an understanding of where he's going to be. Well, what West Virginia did, and I really like this, is I've gapped you out away from the back, right? The C gap, the B gap, the A gap, and then the subsequent A gap on the other side. The only way that you can go anywhere for the running back is through that B gap, because I'm also going to cop that DN, meaning that he's going to contain. He's got contained pressure. He's got the C gap. Well, Minnesota runs this like dirty bunch set. They're in a bunch. It's 12 personnel. They get a bunch set. Okay, that's great. They're going to run 3 buzz. They're going to run 3 buzz behind it. What that does is I now have a nickel, a free safety, a field safety, and a will linebacker all waiting for that B gap. And so to me, what you end up getting is not only am I penetrating and I'm forcing the issue right now with the inside linebacker, but I'm also giving plus numbers to that B gap. I'm funneling you into a phone booth, and that phone booth already has 3 people in it. And so to me, this is a great complement to any of your Mex or your Allen, any kind of your A gap sim pressures early on. So let's wrap this up. Even spacing pre-snap, odd spacing post-snap, it changes the way offenses not only have to look. Think of it in terms of what we're seeing in the secondary at the NFL level of everybody running a 2-high shell, but they're really running middle of the field closed a third of the time, and then they're running middle field open a third of the time, and then they sprinkle in their different blitz coverages in cover 1. So what does that do to the front? hey, again, go back, ask your offensive coordinator friend, draw me up your favorite run. They're going to draw it up against the 4-down front. Right. And then now if you change that post snap to odd spacing to where you've closed the B gaps, you're attacking the interior of the line. Now everything's kind of spilling out to your coverage and your overhangs. You've got everything in the middle. Now everything's either got to roll off the front door or it cuts back to numbers. So you're getting what you want. Tight front mentality from an even presentation. That's essentially what these creepers and sims are doing. Okay, we're giving you an even front, but we're getting to tight front fits. Mac allows for immediate penetration. If you want a B gap complement, this would be like Brady, right? So Mac's really good against zone because I'm forcing the issue. Maybe I can get a run through if it's play action pass. And I can, if the center hangs on too long to the nose, if I'm getting guards pulling and things like that, find out where the guard's pulling, find out what the tight end's doing. And if they're a gap scheme heavy, are they same side? So they're pulling to the running back, or are they kind of in that traditional sense of we're kind of logging it. We're sending everybody away from the back, and the back's just going to follow as blockers. Once you kind of ID that, if you want to attack and try and get that run through on the guard, now that you would attack that, and that's the Brady. That would be what you call Brady attacking the B gap with the off ball backer. Use utility pressures on early downs and ID the run type. Okay, not everything's created equal. Mac and Allen are really good versus zone. If you're a gap scheme, now I need to figure out, do I want to chase the puller or do I want to punch the puller? Okay, if I want to punch the puller, I want to blitz opposite of where they're pulling. If I want to chase the puller and I think I can get that run through, then I want to send it to where I know I'm going to get the puller. And so again, are they a same side pull team? Are they a traditional gap scheme team? Okay, send box defenders, let the DBs cover, right? So DBs are covering receivers. That's what they do. That's what they sign up for. Box defenders fit the box and they blitz. That's what we're kind of seeing this trend is going away from a heavy secondary pressures. Wisconsin does a lot of their blitzing, but they run a lot of single high covers. They run a lot of cover three. So you do see the safety in the blitz a lot of the times. But if you look at like what Baylor is doing, what Georgia's doing, a lot of off ball backers in the blitz. Create confusion for the O, but simple for the D. These are like, for instance, Mac is a simple, like if you just do a dog tag, like mama means Mike to the A. That's how I've structured it in my call sheet. Mama means Mike to the A, right? All we're doing is running a dog, but I've added the element of kind of a tech stunt to the 3 and the 5, and I'm allowing that jack backer or that edge to just kind of fold back in. Or if he does see pass right now, he just kind of spot drops to a spot, right? And so to me, I'm not changing anything. That's really simple. Even in the Allen or what Aranda calls Mex, it's a cross stunt. Like the Mike's just cross dogging it, right? The wheels kind of fit and folding off of that. And then again, the 3 and the 5 are running a tech stunt on early downs. If the DN sees that it's a pass, then he can drop and he knows where he's dropping. Do I have the back? Is the back away from me? Where am I going off of that? So pair with coverages to add numbers versus heavy sets, middle of the field close, right? So I like to add our cover 3 coverage with Mac. Okay, any kind of internal pressure, sim pressure, I want to load the box. I know it's a rundown, so I want to run cover 3. And a lot of these you will see cover 3 with because you're losing the Mike backer. But you can always kind of move that DN back into the box. We call it a ratted technique, to where he's just working back and he replaces the Mike. So you can do this, but that's the other thing. I think if you look at like what Womack does at South Alabama and what he did at Indiana when they had a couple years ago, when they had one of the best defenses in the country, was they ran Allen like it was going out of style. Like it was the only pressure that they ran, but they mixed up the coverages behind it. They ran cover 1 behind it, then they'd run quarters behind it, then they'd run their cover 3s behind it. So you just kind of change that up, and then you add, hey, this time we're going to make it a 5-man pressure. This time it's a simulated pressure. And so you change the add tag. Do we want to run it as a sim? Do we want to run it as an add? And then hit them with the traditional 6-man cross dog, hot hot zone. So you can do all these different things, but it's the same pressure. It keeps it simple for the kids. And again, if you want simulated pressures to work and you want these creepers to work, you do have to send 5 or 6 every once in a while. You do have to blitz, because that illusion of blitz has to be there. They have to see that guy creeping up and saying, okay, he's coming. You can't just always just creep the guy up and bluff and show and then never send the guy, because then it defeats the complete purpose. So again, I hope you guys enjoy these blitz of the month. I always like to try and make them just a little bit more than, hey, look at this really cool blitz, and then here's 1,000 words. And then obviously with the ArtofX show, we're breaking them down. Make sure to follow me on MatchQuarters Substack. Anytime you want to see anytime you need templates, anytime you want to find an article that I've written, go to MatchQuarters.com. Follow me on Twitter at @the_coach_A. Follow the hashtag ArtofX, and that QR code takes you to the books. Have a great day.